It is sometimes hard to believe that the Pacific Ocean stretches almost halfway around the world. It is vast and vacant looking, unless we look closely at the map. And then we see hundreds of little islands. For this is an island world where 2.5 million people live. They are such a complicated mixture of peoples that scientists have had to divide them up by geography instead of by races. The people here are called Polynesians. Those in this area are called Melanesians. And last of all, there is Micronesia. Here in Micronesia alone, there are at least 100 island groups. One of these groups is the Marshall Islands, newest wards of the United States. There are 33 islands in the Marshalls. One of them is Bikini. Another is Kwajalein, a well-known naval station. Northeast of Kwajalein, there's a tiny island named Likiep. From the air, Likiep looks like this, a curving strip of tiny coral islands. But if we could get into a diver's suit and go below the surface of the sea, this is the way the island might look as we faced it. Islands like Likiep were probably once volcanoes, but now the ocean covers everything except the rim of the volcano, which has been built up over millions of years by the stone-like skeletons of tiny sea animals, which we call coral. Likiep is a coral island or atoll, complete with a shallow lagoon. A coral island looks romantic, but it has one practical drawback. Nothing much will grow in coral sand except coconut trees, and men can't live on coconuts alone. And so, it's not surprising that the inhabitants of Likiep are expert fishermen. They don't fish just now and then for the fun of it, or to vary their diet. Their diet is fish, and they go fishing every day in order to live. And fishing with the islanders is not a one-man sport, it's a community undertaking. As the fleet ready to sail, the women and children come to wave goodbye. The breeze blows salty and free over the lagoon, of the outriggers, and the men sing. The men who live in Polynesia and Micronesia have long been recognized as experts in the art of navigation. The sea captains of early whaling ships recruited them as sailors because of their great skill. In fact, even in the last war, Allied troops learned a great deal about the sea from these islanders and came to respect their knowledge and advice. This is the way an islander bails out his boat. And now, the fleet has arrived at the fishing grounds, and the coral anchor is dropped. Islanders don't learn navigation by accident. Early in life, boys must learn the direction of winds and waves, to chart movements of sun, moon, and stars, to use strange instruments like this one, to read meanings from the flight of birds and from the color of the sky. Boats are as essential to good fishing as a knowledge of navigation, and so naturally, boat building is an important island occupation. No blueprints or handbooks are used in building these fragile outriggers. This skill, like the art of navigation, has been handed down from generation to generation. Women can be as expert at shipbuilding as men. This old lady is as skilled as her husband. He was a sailor who was shipwrecked on Likiep 50 years ago. Today, in their 80s, they are still partners in work as well as marriage. But most island women don't build ships. Like all women, they are most interested in their homes and children. Their thatched huts are primitive, but they are kept as tidy and clean as homes anywhere. In fact, the women help clean up the whole village every morning. Basket weaving is the favorite handicraft of the women on Likiep, and they're very expert at it. A kitten is a luxury here, because all animals are imported, even the sparse supply of livestock. Animals seldom choose coral islands for a home. Natural food is so scarce that only resourceful human beings can exist on them. Even these baby albatrosses were captured on a more fertile island as pets for the children. And speaking of human resourcefulness, a giant clamshell makes a fine baby's bathtub. The United States is taking its guardianship of the Marshall Islands seriously, and additional facilities are being improved. American authorities realize that BCs may never be as important to these people as the more basic skills that enable them to survive. But education in sanitation and hygiene can greatly improve their health. An island boy learns to climb a coconut palm almost as soon as he can walk, for coconuts provide both food and drink. They're also about the only commodity that the islanders have for export. After the coconut meat has been extracted from its tough shell, it is dried in the sun and is called copra. Copra provides a vegetable oil, which is widely used in making soap and medicines. Its present price is only a few cents a pound, and it takes a great many coconuts to produce a pound of copra. But most islanders are too busy seeking food to have much time for the unprofitable business of making copra. Fishing with a net near the beach doesn't usually bring in very big fish or very many, but it's lots of fun, and it calls for real skill too. Meanwhile, the fishing fleet is still at work. Baiting the hook is a unique process with the island fisherman. First, he shreds the bait with his teeth. Then he lays the pieces on a flat stone and wraps the hook and line around it. The shreds of bait drift loose underwater. Some fish get a free lunch, but one gets the hook. Catching a giant clam calls for a more personal technique. This man is the best diver on Likiep. In spite of his 60 years, he can stay underwater 3 minutes. He must work quickly and be careful not to let the clam shut on an arm or leg. When that happens, the diver is held underwater until he drowns. The clam has been caught now, and it's just a matter of hauling it on board. It's a big one, weighing over 250 pounds. Tonight, the clam will be cut up and made into a delicious chowder. And tomorrow, 2 more island children will have brand new bathtubs. It's sunset now, and the fishermen go back. But the boat cannot be turned around because the outrigger must always be kept to windward. And so first, the position of the masts is reversed. And then the rudder, which is detachable, is placed at the opposite end. And now the boat, like a trolley car which has reached the end of its line, is headed in the opposite direction. fleet's return is always an event to the islanders. The younger boys are especially eager to see the day's catch. They can hardly wait until they'll be old enough to bring home a tuna or a bonita fish of their own. Most people think of South Sea Islanders as pagans. Actually, the greater proportion of them are Christians. Both Catholic and Protestant missionaries began bringing Christianity to the islands over a century ago, and it took quick root with these gentle, peace-loving people. This is how the 23rd Psalm looks when it's translated into Marshallese. The first church on Leakiep was established almost 100 years ago by congregational ministers from Boston. And today, almost all islanders are very devout, although some of the old superstitions and taboos still persist. Leakiep has only one contact with the outside world, a small trading ship which was built in Leakiep and has no engines. About once a month, mail and supplies arrive, and then the village council meets. The magistrate is elected by popular vote. Democracy comes naturally to people with strong community feeling. As a result of the Japanese occupation, there are still many problems of rehabilitation to be solved, and always the problem of trading and getting supplies. But while the island councilmen hold their meeting, the young men have other ideas. They go digging for turtle eggs. Like most island sports, this one is connected with getting food, for turtle eggs are good to eat. Even after boiling, the shells remain soft and the contents semi-fluid. Turtle eggs, eaten from the shell, are a delicacy to the islanders. Turtles provide the islanders not only with eggs, but with meat as well. In fact, turtle steak is considered such fine food that once only kings were permitted to eat it. But today everybody can, and turtle hunts are big events in island life. When a turtle is caught on Leakiep, it's usually somebody's birthday. And if it isn't, they have a feast anyhow. In preparation for the feast, the men go out to gather papaya and breadfruit. Breadfruit is an important item in the diet of the islanders. Though it doesn't look much like bread, it is very starchy and can be cooked so that it almost tastes like it. Real bread is baked in island ovens. The heat for the oven comes from hot coral stones placed in a hole in the ground, and the oven works on the same principle as a fireless cooker. Wheat flour for the bread has to be imported, but the yeast is homemade from fermented coconut sap. Just before the feast, the village girls play a juggling game with small coconuts. The girl who can juggle the longest without letting the coconuts drop is the winner. At last, the feast begins. There's plenty of food and a wide variety of it. Turtle stew, broiled turtle steaks, clam stew, and tuna fish. As appetizers, there are coconut milk and papaya. In the islands, even ducks like coconut. Coconut milk is the children's favorite and only drink. Fingers are good etiquette here, and singing at table is encouraged. And there are no taboos on appetite, talk, or laughter. For these people enjoy life to the full. Even when they work, they seem to be at play. But work they must, for their very survival depends on it. They have had to make full use of the limited resources that nature gave their island home. And in the process, they have learned to live together with a gentleness and grace and generosity that our Western world may well envy.